And we are live once again. Hello, friends. Welcome to Trending, the pre-show at least, as we get the stream up and running. And for those of you who've decided to spend your Wednesday lunch break with us, thank you as always. I'm just going to clean up some stuff on my side of the fence, but you might struggle if you're watching the stream today to know who is talking and when. Because
well, hold on.
It's like some identical twins.
The good news is the cameras, for whatever reason, if it does cut to me, my blue of my sweater is coming through a lot more than the blue of your sweater. Yours looks a little bit more navy.
Right.
Mine looks a bit more that traditional, I guess, just standard blue.
Standard blue. That's such a guy description of a color. we basically are aware of like there's light blue, dark blue.
Dark blue. Navy. I know
navy. Navy. Yeah, fair. And then
baby blue. I know that much.
Okay. All right. Well, you're getting a bit fancy. You're leaving me behind here. Turquoise, perhaps, but like the shades of blue.
I thought turquoise was green, so never mind.
Well, you can get a bluey green turquoise, can't you? It's a greeny blue or a bluey green. Stop me if I'm wrong in the chat. If you are more knowledgeable in these matters, maybe any professional house painters.
Oh yeah, watching Trending at the moment.
You'd expect that to be rather savvy about the nuances of color if you're a house painter.
Good to see we're now live up on Facebook as well.
Glorious. So all to say that we were disturbed to discover how similarly we are dressed today.
Our pants and shoes even.
Hang on, can we get an old shot up on the... There we go. I don't know if Urquhart would appreciate us having...
That's true.
But look at that. I mean, even down to the white sole, blue top, and then, what would you say, tan?
Tan-esque. Tan to beige kind
Tan
of
to
pants.
beige. Tan to beige. Does that sound like a good name for an album? If you're like a crooner or something like that, it's
Tan to beige.
Tan to beige. And now Tan to beige with Andrew and Josh. Or is it the name of a song?
Tan to beige.
Or the name of a horse.
Wow.
Actually, name of a horse. I like that. Tan to beige. Your
Tan to beige coming up the right side.
Yeah, exactly. It's Tan to beige, Tan to beige. So, look at that. Tan to beige has won the Melbourne Cup. We're on to a winner.
We have a few people who have now logged in via Facebook. Hey, thanks for joining us. This is Trending. It is the pre-show. The banter gets a lot more quality when we get into the actual show.
Hang on a second. I'll have you know, this is quality banter as well. It's perhaps just a bit more structured after 12 o'clock. Yeah. Which reminds me, we need to get the hot keys ready. The hot keys.
Hot keys?
The hot keys. Good thing this is my pop sock, otherwise...
I don't have my pop.
Oh, do you not? Do you want to take that one off there?
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Otherwise, people will be like every time you talk.
Stop.
Hello, people. It's Josh. No, who does?
Well, now that's got to sound great putting it on.
That's all right. Just people know that it's real, that it's live.
That's true.
What fool would do this unless it was necessary? You know what's sad is that every time we load into the hotkeys, this is where we play our little music stings and things from, there's the key for the things that make you go, that we can't play anymore because we found out it was getting us not quite copyright strikes, but something to that effect.
It was causing particularly, I think it was the Facebook audio to strike us, and so the audio would mute.
We were Zuck-smoten.
And so you could see us being very animated and jovial and
assume we were being hilarious, and you would have been right. However, could you have heard it? No, you could not. Well, we have about 10 seconds until we're into the thick of it, guys. So for those who have joined us on the stream, thank you so much. Be it YouTube or Facebook. When we return in a few awkward moments, we'll bring in the rest of the country and do a radio/internet show, shall we? Very good.
Live on air and online. Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Oh, that comes in strong, doesn't it? Big fan of that. Hello, welcome. Great to see you again. This is Trending. I am your host, Andrew Curtis, and we are about to go on a jolly jaunt through the news stories over the last week. Do you like that? Jolly jaunt?
A jolly jaunt through the news stories of the week that was.
But these have been selected by you indirectly. What have you been searching for? What have you been clicking on? Well, not only does the Lord see, but so does the algorithm. So we're going to go through What was the most popular? What maybe might have been overlooked? In fact, one story in particular, surprisingly absent, which we do need to make sure we talk about. Thankfully, I won't be talking about it alone, though. I have my doppelganger with me today. Josh Beatty, how did this happen?
We were marveling off here for the stream that we are dressed eerily similar today. Blue knit type jumper.
That's right.
White shirt underneath.
That's right.
Tan pants that you can't see on the stream, unfortunately. If you do want to see this, by the way.
Yeah, it is a pants-free stream. We don't show pants around here. There's broadcasting standards.
Right.
As you were, sir.
I've got blue shoes with white soles as well.
Amazing. But no, as Josh mentioned too, you can watch as well as listen. So we'd love to get your contributions however you can take part in the show today.
8168 with the keyword REMA. That is the traditional method via text. Or, of course, if you want to watch the stream, find it at rema.co.nz and simply leave a comment below.
We are looking forward to getting into these stories then. What have been the ones that have captured our attention? Where have we gone searching in Google for more information? What's been popular on our major news services, both in New Zealand and around the world? Let's find out, shall we?
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
This story kicking off with Google-related searches, in fact. And in this case, is your power bill average? Now, I said Google. What I meant was one of our major news services. This story was number 2 on One News. So you'd have to say rivals maybe stuff.co.nz and The Herald, I think, for the top 3. The holy trinity, if you will, of reputable news in this country, depending on who you ask, of course.
Yes, depending on who you ask, for sure.
But it's a reasonable question, isn't it? Is your power bill average?
We did a little bit of investigation off air before we came to trending to have a look if ours was in fact average or not. So One News has released a little bit of a comparative graph that you can have a look at, see how you're looking.
That's right. I've brought it up now on screen for those of us who are able to join the live streams on either YouTube or Facebook Live. But how does your house compare? Price based on a 3 or 4 person household using power to heat hot water and a heat pump for heating and cooling in a fully insulated house. So naturally, that's about 20% of the houses in New Zealand.
Yeah, because it's only me and my wife in our house.
I was thinking more about those that are insulated.
Oh, right.
That's not as common as perhaps it should be.
Yeah.
Looking down the list, though, Auckland, Central Auckland, around about $250. Really, the biggest outlier here is Thames and Coromandel. Isn't that weird? And then Turangi, for some reason, also outrageously expensive. The average sits around, again, $250. Goes as low as, say, $235 in Hamilton. That's right, they're living large, high on the hog, as it were. Cranking out all the old-timey sayings today.
What if we do this? Get in touch right now.
Ooh.
8168 keyword REMA, like we said, or if you're watching the stream, leave a comment below. If you don't mind, what was your most recent power bill?
Yeah.
We can see if this data actually stacks up. Is it correct? Is it comparable to what you're paying?
Continuing to look through some of these options here, what else strikes me? Bulla, this is horrific. For Bulla, $325 spent in April.
In April?
Yeah. This is the April costs, by the way. This isn't a yearly average I'm sharing with you. $325.
What does that look like in winter?
Terrified to think. Terrified to think. Perhaps Hamilton was unseasonably warm, which is why theirs was so low compared to everybody else. Also places like Taihapea, $296. Here's a strange one, though. Wellington City, one of the absolute cheapest, at $225.
Good news for Wellington, I suppose, off the back of, well...
How much bad news could they possibly have? I mean, surely. There comes a point where even the Lord himself says, you've suffered enough, my child.
It's trying to tip the scales back into balance, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, of course, many different thoughts being shared on ways to optimize our power use. In fact, on the Rema Breakfast Show, we were joined by Sam Garraway from Christians Against Poverty. That interview is on the Rema website as well, but he shares some thoughts on how you can save some money on your power. So if you want to check that out, also places you can go to do the old price compare, who's ripping you off, who's got the deals that you want. But we mentioned also, Josh, you and I did a bit of analysis. So what was your power bill for the last month?
Oh, you'll have to give me a moment as I bring up the app. Do you know, by the way, this is a little bit off topic, but so I'm with Mercury. I don't mind shouting them out specifically because they have, if you have the app, ways to get money off your bill by doing walking challenges.
What?
So your phone has an inbuilt pedometer.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so if you just click through, yep, I'm doing this challenge. If you walk a certain amount of steps within the required amount of time, and these are just constantly ticking over as various challenges, you get points that then you get to use to take money off your bill.
So what you're saying is if you can get a dog collar that you can strap your phone to.
I'm not going to lie, and potentially I shouldn't say this on a Rima broadcast live on the stream, but I have sat at my couch and just done this. I am shaking my phone back and forth for those listening the traditional way, and I'm getting my steps in.
Hate the game. All right. So I can tell you that we spent 187 in our household, and it came as a shock to my wife. She didn't know there'd been power price increases throughout the month of April rather. So she was asking why it was so comparatively expensive. But 187, that's for two people. I'm
just behind you at 183.
Interesting. I wonder what we're doing for the extra $4 then. That's maybe causing us to blow out on great largesse.
Are you having super long showers?
I mean, how long is a long shower really? Like
Half
if you
hour?
think about it, a half hour is quite long. I can safely say we are not half an hour. But for sake of comparison, we did ask the question. If you want to share the answer to this in the chat or either via the text, let us know today.
Alistair did that. In fact, he says, grey power electricity charging me $121 a week in Invercargill.
Whoa. All right. Invercargill, here we come. Alistair, if I could be so bold, how many in the household? I mean, 121 still for one person. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's.
If there is more than one in the household.
Yeah. That's actually astonishing.
That is outrageous.
Are you one of the people who turns off your hot water cylinder when you go out?
Can you do that?
Yeah. You don't know that?
I guess now that I think about it, it's so logical, but I've just never really considered to do it.
Yeah, well, 40% of your power bill apparently is all down to heating water. So maybe because we drink a lot of tea, coming back to why we spent $4 more on power than you do, we boiled the jug so many times.
How many cups of tea does that equate to?
I mean, at least 400 probably.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
So not surprising then, at least to find that story as one of our most popular in the country. This next one, though, a little bit niche, but to be honest, with these kind of stories, we can't help ourselves because Josh and I are what they refer to in the dictionary as massive nerds. So good news, everybody. Oblivion is back.
Now, if you don't know, you would be forgiven. Oblivion is a Elder Scrolls game.
Don't point your finger like you don't know.
You
know.
I sort of
just acknowledge that you know. Okay,
look,
there's no point.
I haven't really played a lot of. It's what's the bigger
Skyrim?
Yeah, I haven't really played a lot of Skyrim. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. Well, I would appreciate you not lying under any circumstances.
Well.
But in this particular case, thank you for maintaining the integrity of this part of the show. Oblivion was a game that was released back in the day, 2006, and followed up by another title called Skyrim. Many a parent might be getting some kind of twinge in the back of their mind of, I feel like my kid was playing a fair bit of that. Or, let's be honest, you were probably playing it yourself, weren't you? Come on, be honest now. For some reason, instead of releasing a new game, they thought it might be better to remaster the old one. And enough people were excited about this for it to become the number 17 story on Google, Oblivion Remaster. But what is the big deal with this? Well, thankfully, we have a story to help tell us why you should care that Oblivion is back.
After leaks, speculation, and a whole lot of excitement upon confirmation it was actually happening, it turns out the Oblivion Remaster is actually good. And of course, fans are going absolutely nuts, considering how influential this game has been as an Elder Scrolls property since launching in 2006. From NPC dialogue being recreated via live action, to the wacky character creator, to Bacon's incredible videos, there's always been an affinity for Bethesda's early 2000s masterpiece.
Body still warm.
And now that it's back, there's no shortages of references online yet again. Not to mention the fact that it's single-handedly set events in motion that would lead to the poor state of the microtransaction-fueled AAA gaming experience of today, as the original Horse Armor DLC was the first to cost a few dollars. As a result, you can understand why this particular remaster has reached so much hype, although it seems some in the Elder Scrolls community want Morrowind remastered rather than Oblivion. Morrowind is considered a bit of a weirder game, with the setting looking a lot more alien and interesting than the somewhat more generic, yet still amazing, fantasy Oblivion promotes. It's also worth noting that remastering games instead of making new ones is a stereotype attributed to Bethesda, as of course the amount of Skyrim releases has been insane. Fans have been waiting for the Elder Scrolls 6 for 6 years since the first teaser released, so whilst it's frustrating that we haven't seen a new game since Skyrim in 2011, it feels as if we've been given a crumb of attention through this tasty morsel. It seems like no developer is more aware of the legacy they've left behind than Bethesda, as the reveal trailer consistently reiterates that they care about the old systems and the janky moments, but also shows the new stuff like better sound effects, voice acting, and hit registry than what the game had before.
So there you go, all the hit registry you could ever ask for. And isn't that great? Don't you hate it, Josh, when there's just not the hit registry you're after?
Oh, man. I just can't handle the wrong hit registry.
When my hits go unregistered, I'm not myself.
Oh, I get it. Yeah. No, I'm on board.
That was some A-grade playing along then if you had absolutely no idea.
I thought I got it.
Okay, all to say, Oblivion is back. Really short question is, would you play it or not, Josh?
I'd give it a go.
I mean, here's the thing. If you wait long enough, this is the great thing about being PC Master Race. It'll cost normal amounts these days, what, $50, $60, something like that, maybe more. But if you're prepared to wait and get yourself out of the game release schedule, this is a trick for young players, you can pick up all sorts of stuff.
Trick for parents as well. If you want to save money because your kid is asking after this game, it's very popular.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's a win-win. Because if you say, yes, I will, but as you know, we don't buy games when they're released in this house. It can be your own house rule, because why not? Then it goes into the wish list. And then in a couple of years, they say, all right, are you still wanting to play this? And of course the answer is no, because the kid's moved on. And then there's a new game to replace it.
Smart.
You see? So, video games. That's why that one at least was coming in at number 17.
To head back to our first story about power bills, we did get a follow-up from Alistair to say,
lovely.
3 adults, 1 child,
Shush!
gas, water, heating.
Get out of town. What is going on? $120, right?
He said $121 a week in Invercargill. Alistair, I do not wish to besmirch your honour here on the stream.
But you were clearly involved in witchcraft. How are you doing this?
What is going on?
What?
Can anybody beat that?
Touche. So we've got family of 5, effectively, is it?
3 adults, 1 child, so 4.
3 adults. I mean, 3 is like a family of 5 then, isn't it? Like 3 adults. Okay.
Yeah.
Still, family of 4. I mean, I would think the more adults, surely the more power you use.
Yeah, because we're talking about this article on One News to begin the show about comparing the average prices for the regions across the country in terms of power bills. What is yours? 8168 with the keyword REMA, or of course, if you're watching the stream, leave a comment below.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Now to a story that I would have sworn we would have seen in our trending news, but it is what we like to call missing in action. Nobody, as far as we can tell, at least in, say, the top 25 Google searches in our country, was looking for more information about Pope Francis. Pope Francis. Unbelievable that this was not in our search terms anywhere.
Yeah, that's why we call it a missing in action. There's been a lot of coverage of this story, and then, of course, the follow-up with the Cardinals meeting, or the secrecy behind that, potentially a reason not many people are searching because it's actually pushed in front of them quite a lot on a lot of our news sites.
Yeah, it could be.
But certainly an impactful story for the entire globe recently.
Yeah, and I was reminded too of the impact that Pope Francis has on, well, not just Catholics, but people who I would say are faith adjacent. Is that fair? People who may or may not identify themselves as Christians or regular church attenders, but still recognize this was somebody who lived by his convictions. If you remember when he first became Pope, he really shook up a lot of the perceptions around how the clergy should be behaving, what their standard of living was like compared to so many others around the world, and then, of course, his many calls to take action on social causes.
Well, he was a much more hands-on Pope, it felt like.
True, yeah.
It felt like he got into the muck and mire and was actually a Pope of the people?
I think so. I think that's fair. I think that's very fair. Compared to, say, was it Benedict before him? I believe it was.
See, I don't even remember.
Yeah.
What does that say?
Not good things, Josh. Some of the worst, in fact. Is it too irreverent to also ask whether or not we can get somebody coming out with a relatively unique name? Because, Benedict, I think, was like the 11th. Now I'm getting in trouble because those who know will know immediately, but very rare to have, here's Pope Roger the First. It's always the 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 10th, 25th, whatever it might be.
Right.
And on a semi-serious note, one of the things that inspired this is that people are suggesting that we might be looking at our first Pope from either Asia or Africa. So why should we expect an African Pope to go by John Paul?
Pope Derek.
Pope Derek. I don't think a lot of Dereks in Africa either, though, mate.
No.
You might have missed on that particular shot.
No, I know. There's a feeling that has to come with the name of a Pope. It's weird to say, but you're like, or maybe Pope Josh.
Pope Josh? Pope Joshua. I don't know if you can
Joshua.
go with Joshua, fine.
Pope Andrew.
Josh. Yeah, Pope Andrew. Oh, there you go. Does that have a...
You probably get used to it.
You probably get used to it. Would you, though? Look, this is what the New York Times had to say about Pope Francis, and in their words, why he was always a surprise.
I've been covering the Vatican since 2000. I've covered 3 different popes. What was different about Francis is that he was easier to talk to. There seemed to be less distance between yourself and him, who was the leader of the Roman Catholic Church. Francis was full of surprises from the very beginning. No one really thought that it was going to be possible that he would become Pope. But then he comes out of the conclave as Pope Francis. No one really expected that. That sort of ability to surprise people was a through line, I would say, of his entire pontificate.
Se una persona è gay e cerca il Signore e ha buona volontà, ma chi sono io per giudicarla?
So he brought this sort of new empathy and humanity that surprised people, changed the way people saw the church. Traveling a lot with Pope Francis, you get a very good sense about what he really cares about. And what he really cares about is the downtrodden. The sort of common theme throughout his entire pontificate was migrants, people who are persecuted. Those people he spoke up for constantly.
Quello che uccide i migranti è la nostra differenza.
Even when it became unfashionable to do so. In Bangladesh, I was with him. He came face to face with the Rohingya Muslim minority who were deeply persecuted in neighboring Myanmar. And he was actually choked up and overcome with emotion.
La sua domanda è cosa ha sentito. Nel momento io piangevo. Cercavo che non si vedesse.
Francis really made climate change and all countries coming together to save the earth a priority. They issued not one but 2 encyclicals, which is basically a major papal document, something that has the stamp of like the full force of the office behind it. I think a lot of especially liberals within the church, and especially sort of secular observers of the church, thought that because Francis was so different, that he was going to make radical changes to the doctrine of the church. But he was well aware that he was the leader of a giant institution with 1.3 billion people. And you don't want to do something radical, I think. If your expectation was that he was going to make women priests, then you're disappointed. What he did do is that he let women into the decision-making process of the church in ways that had never been done before. In terms of LGBTQ, if you wanted the Catholic Church to recognize gay marriage, you're going to be disappointed. But he also allowed priests to extend blessings to gay couples. I'm in Rome, and Rome has seen a lot of popes, and it's kind of sort of a cynical city, and so your taxi driver will tell you, a pope dies, you make another one. But I think that this pope maybe was a little bit different. The world shifted, and politics have shifted. In a way, he's became a very sort of lonely voice on those issues, on migration, on climate, on human rights. His dying sort of is the loss of a consistent voice and is leaving a void.
Wow, it was an amazing bit of coverage there from the New York Times.
It's a marvel to me that Pope Francis seemed to walk the middle quite well.
Yeah, tell me more.
We want to politicize a lot of things these days.
Sure.
We see this particularly in church culture, probably thinking most likely of American church culture, that the divide is now between Republican, Democrat, left, right. And as a religious man, it seemed that his first and foremost care was to what is right and good, and not allowing one side to influence higher than the other.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a reason why I think he was so beloved. I maybe had appeared with Benedict the 16th. Thankfully, we're able to discover from that clip. So now I know which edition of Benedict he was. Maybe he's seen as a little bit more academic than Francis was, seen as a man of the people. So what will happen next? That's really a fascinating question too, in terms of the direction of the church. And even within our own cultures, we notice that tension between those who are more liberal and those who are more conservative, when pressures of culture seem to shake the church. Do we adapt? Do we adjust the way that we do things, or is it important to draw the line? And as you heard there in that clip, there were certain things that even though Pope Francis was seen to be a lot more accommodating of, he also did not bend on some other more foundational church doctrines up till that point as well. Fascinating to see that. And perhaps the last thought on this too, I don't know how well I can sum this up in a couple of moments, but to consider the relationship within the Christian community towards the Catholic Church. I mean, this is very much a Protestant nation, and yet, as you heard in that clip, over 1 billion people around the world identify as Catholic, as opposed to a particular Protestant denomination. How well do we relate to our Catholic brothers and sisters these days? There's maybe been historical animosity between the two factions. Does it need to be as strong as it still is? Has it diminished? Perhaps if you're a younger person, have you had much of a sense of this? Is it more of a generational thing? Are we ready to move on from this, or are there certain things that we have to draw a line on? I'd be curious to know your thoughts on that as well.
Feel free to get in touch, 8168 with the keyword REMA, to text if you are listening the traditional way, or of course if you want to watch the stream and leave a comment below, rema.co.nz.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Now, Andrew, before you jump into our next story, we've got to go back to this one that keeps bringing in some gold.
Alrighty, let's go. Power savings, right?
Hamish has got in touch. I've just checked my power bills, and my last one was, I can't fathom how this is possibly true. Hamish, if you're still watching, I hope so, please get in touch, because the quick question is, how many people in your home? He's in Auckland.
Okay.
Last bill, $103.
Get out.
$103.
Get out.
What?
Get out. Do you have light bulbs in your house, Hamish? Do you own a television? Is your fridge, in fact, just ice buckets in the dirt out the back of your house? How?
Candle lighting everywhere. It's
What
very
sorcery is this?
Yeah, it's a vibe.
I don't even. That's amazing.
I can't.
103?
103 and 39 cents.
Ha! That changes nothing about your story at all. What?
I
How?
am flabbergasted. Get in touch yourself, by the way, if you're listening. 8168 keyword REMA. Wow.
That if you can tell me how you've achieved this. You clearly look, this is not by accident. I think at this point we have to concede this guy is doing something that we are not. And in all humility and grace, we now approach ye who spend less than, say, 150 on your household. How are you doing this? Because, wow.
Hamish, please get back in touch. Let us know some more key details, mainly how many people in the house. But yeah, is there any... What's your secret?
What's your secret?
What's the secret?
I want to be like you when I grow up. How'd you do it?
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Now trending on stuff.co.nz, one of the other members of the news trinity, as discussed earlier in the show. This one fascinating for the comparison between the number 1 and the number 3 stories. Now, this is not related to Google. This is what happens if you head along to the stuff.co.nz website and they have their most read stories shown for your viewing pleasure. The number 1 story, which we debated if we would even include, simply because there's not really anything to it. But Kim.com, that's right, he's still in New Zealand, snaps up one of Dunedin's grandest homes. That was the number 1 story on stuff.co.nz.
The most clicked on story recently on Stuff, which we have commented on previously, is a lot more focused on
Human interest.
yes, your grassroots level kind of stories.
Human interest does seem like quite the euphemism, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like humans are interested in a lot of things. What are we really trying to say? It's emotional clickbait, really.
Yeah.
Now,
in comparison, though, to number 3.
Well, and we will get to that in just a moment as well. If you do join us on the stream, we do have a photo of this Mosgiel property brought by said internet mogul, Kim.com. Apparently, bargain basement $2.9 million. Now, you do need to live in Mosgiel, which for our commute maybe writes it off as a possibility.
We can work remote.
That's true. I mean, Gary does it,
Yeah.
right? Does a great job. So why not? Anyway, this is the one he's got. Good on him. But as you mentioned, Josh, the number 3 story in comparison, just thought it was priceless when you consider the overall impact and significance of this, and the fact that it was displaced down to number 3.
Tory Whānau drops out of Wellington's mayoral race.
Number 3 story. That is less important to people than Kim.com buying a house somewhere that most of you have never been, at a place you will never see, somebody that you do not know, and whose life does not materially impact you in any way whatsoever.
Do we just want to see the picture of the house?
You know what? I feel like a fool because that's exactly why.
That's why you click on.
That's the whole reason, and the only reason. I don't think we care really about Kim.com in any appreciable way. And dare I say it, in the world of luxury property, $2.9 million, bargain basement price, really. For what this thing looks like, again, if you join us on the stream, I'm looking at it right now. There's a lovely dusk photo. You know when they wait till it's dusk and turn all the lights on and then run across the road and take a photo? They have done that. I mean, it looks great. Looks lovely. Lovely swimming pool in the property. I'd imagine a heated pool. If you're living in Mosgiel,
Surely.
you would have to. And it is a American Georgian style, built in the mid-1980s.
Whatever that means.
The moment you enter this home, the moment you enter this home, you realize this is a home of impressive proportions. That's what the property listing said. But Tory Whānau, though, dropping out of the mayoral race, I have loved the coverage of this and the number of people who said it's a shock. Because
what?
This is not a shock. This is not a shock. Surely not. How far? I was going to say something that would get me in trouble, so let me rephrase. What? How do you not see this coming?
I saw recently, by the way, in an interview that she rated her time
Oh no.
9 out of 10.
Did she say what the criteria was to earn that rating? Because if she didn't, well played. I rate my ability to be the mayor as the likelihood of being in the headlines for some reason. 9 out of 10. I would give her 9 out of 10 for that. She is in the one thing you can say for Tory, she was in the headlines.
Indeed she was. And again.
Yeah. So it looks like Andrew Little, former Labour leader who famously handed off to Jacinda Ardern before that election, he's going to be running. And she's, well, I wouldn't say endorsed, but she said she's got a lot of respect for him, so that's something. Tory's mayoralty, though, goodness me, what does it tell us about the state of mayoral elections or even the body politic in Wellington? Because I feel like, by any objective measure, she was a disaster.
No disagreement here. I mean, what does it say? I don't know. Well, I guess I know that the power bills in Wellington are cheaper.
People do vote with their back pockets, but then the housing prices, much, much more. Cost of living
Yeah.
generally elevated compared to the rest of the world. It could just be a case of naked tribalism in that we know the Wellington population skews heavily left. And so, of course, Tory is a Green-affiliated politician. In fact, I can't remember if she ran under the Green ticket specifically or not, but certainly has very strong ties to the Green Party, so there's all that. Look, my final thoughts on her, some of the reasons why she found herself in the headlines were for more tragic personal circumstances. At one point, she came out to acknowledge that she'd been diagnosed with ADHD and was neurodivergent. Also, too, that she had an alcohol problem. Now, those things in and of themselves, I think we need to commend. The fact that a person's willing to talk about their weaknesses and their flaws and get the help that they need. These things are great. Where I draw the line is to say that if you are in a role such as the Mayoralty of Wellington, this is not the place to receive treatment for those kind of problems. So I do wish her all the best. I hope she gets the help and support that she needs. But in the meantime, if you are in a role that demands a huge degree of attention to detail and you also have some self-destructive personal tendencies, you cannot be mayor while you work those things out. I don't think any of us would have thought less of her if she said, I've realized that I'm now not fit for this job and I'm stepping down for the good of Wellington and for the good of my own long-term mental health. That would have been a perfectly acceptable thing. Although, of course, there'll always be some who will snipe. Those people are horrible, so we don't listen to them anyway. But instead to charge on and pretend that, in fact, it's your problem, just eroded whatever support base she may have had. So, no longer the Mayor of Wellington. The number 3 story on stuff.co.nz. Perhaps if she buys a house in Mosgiel, she'll find herself back in the number 1 spot.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Time for a feel-good story now. Wrexham, coming in at number 10. Exotic holiday destination, Josh?
Wrexham?
Yeah.
Is it?
No.
I was going to say.
Not even slightly. Wrexham, of course, an obscure Welsh football team. And some of you are going, oh, Wrexham. Gotcha. Yeah, purchased by a couple of Hollywood celebrities, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. They purchased it back when it was a level 4-5 club.
Low.
Something like that. Basically the bottom level of professional football. The kind of level of professional football where you need a part-time job as well.
Right.
That's where they were
Back
at.
in the day when the All Blacks were also farmers and plumbers and the likes.
Yeah, actually. That's probably a fair observation. So instead, of course, they purchased the club back in 2021. And since then, I mean, you really could not have scripted it. If you did script it this way, nobody would believe it.
Well, I mean, and the story has been followed because of the Hollywood connection, which has only garnered, I guess, more attention, more revenue,
Yep.
which has led to more success in this case.
So the Wrexham club have now been promoted to the Championship. That is one level below the Premier League. So the Premier League, of course, is where you've got your Manchester Uniteds and your Arsenals and your Chelseas and Man Cities and Liverpool, I think, just wrapped up the title and all that kind of stuff. Championship, one level below that now. They'll be playing in next year after having won 4 on the trot. 4 divisions, starting all the way at the bottom, promoted again. One more promotion and suddenly they're in the top flight of English football in only 5 years. It would be incredible if they can pull that off. I imagine it only gets tougher from here. But for a little bit of human interest, we thought we'd play this little clip for you, brought courtesy of Sky Sports Football. And this is the owners of the club, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, reacting to Wrexham and their promotion to the Championship.
Then Stephen Fletcher just walked behind us. Talking of lovely moments, let's bring in the 2 men that have made this possible. There's a big embrace happening behind us between Rob McElhenney. Rob, can we bring you in? You're live on Sky Sports.
Hi.
Ryan, come in too. Come in here, stand next to us.
Can we just acknowledge how jarring an American accent is in this context? Hey, how are you? What the heck is... Anyway.
How's it going?
Congratulations. Rob, can I just ask you, I saw you just have an embrace with one of the photographers
Yes.
here. I've had volunteers in the stands in tears about what this means. Tell me about that sort of relationship with the fans and what it means for you to get back
it's
to them.
the entire experience. I mean, there's so many people here who don't get the credit that they deserve. People here every day, the stewards, obviously the supporters, the media team, the coaches staff, everybody that are keeping the players safe, the pitch, Chow. I mean, people who are not talked about, not sung about, but actually keep the entire thing going. And we have so much love for them.
This man on social media who slides into your DMs and says, you know what, I've got this little project, shall we get involved? What have you got to say to him now?
Well, no, listen, never ignore a successful man who slides into your DMs.
I've been trying to.
No, well, trust me, I have a whole system. It just seemed like an impossible dream, and what we're lucky to do is be as storytellers. And when you're a storyteller, you look as much as you can at the sort of macro view of this history. We would not be here right now if it weren't for, you go all the way back to the Gresford disaster, to Mickey Thomas, who is a huge and pivotal point of aspiration for this club, and a sort of goal to reach that feeling again, because we think of it as a feeling. Paul Mullen, Ollie Palmer, this coaching staff that have kept it, I think, the greatest dressing room in sports in any category that I think I've ever seen before. Truly.
Anyway, they're just talking about sporty stuff now anyway, so I've lost interest. But the point is, Wrexham have been promoted, and they were the number 10 most popular news story in the country over the last week.
Yeah, it's a feel-good story. I think a lot of people have been following it since the beginning. It's been pushed heavily into social media feeds, etc. So, in comparison to a lot of news that maybe we're getting recently,
Yeah, fair. We want an
why
easy
not
one.
click on it? Yeah.
Yeah, and let's be honest, Ryan needs a little bit of positive
Well,
news coverage in his family.
I have a question for you.
Go.
Do you think that the question that interviewer asked about sliding into DMs,
Sure.
a previous Ryan Reynolds, outside of more scandalous times, usually at this point in time, due to his wife,
Yep.
Blake Lively,
Yep.
would have responded a little bit more crassly?
I mean, probably is the short answer to that one.
I felt like he really reined himself in,
That's fair.
and
He reminded himself that he's, PG at best at a time like this. And so, yeah, definitely reined himself in. Not his Deadpool persona, shall we say.
no, that's what I was
No.
thinking. Yeah.
No. So there we have it. That's the story that was number 10 in the country. Did we get an update, by the way, on the power bill stuff? I'm hooked on this now.
No, but Alistair has said 2 of the adults in his house are pensioners, whether or not that makes a difference or not.
Okay.
But no reply yet from Hamish. Hamish, if you are still watching, thank you for your comment. Let us know how many people in your house. If you are watching right now or just started watching or listening, one of the most trending stories on One News, we started with this, is comparing power bills across the region to the average. What is yours? Is it high, low? If you're willing to share, we'd love to know. 8168 keyword Rima, or leave a comment in the chat below.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And now for some international politics. Now, this is interesting because the story that we have for you at the time of prepping this part of the show was the number 1 on Al Jazeera. I do love the fact that around the world, certain stories rise to the top, even though maybe geographically they're not too closely connected. But the number 1 on Al Jazeera was the Canadian election.
The Canadian election.
So Carney and Polyev facing off, and people wondering what the impact of Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think that's the big focus, right? And this is partly why Al Jazeera has given it a lot of coverage, is Donald's
spectre looming over the election.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. There's a Donald Trump. If you go out in the woods today, you might get a big surprise.
I would.
Donald Trump
Tell you
lurking
what,
in the
I
bushes.
would.
Goodness me. With the SS with them. What are they called? Is it the Special Secret Service? The Secret Service, yeah. Not that SS. That's a different. Not that SS. Goodness me. That's your own mind working against you. I take no responsibility. Let's take a look at what Al Jazeera had to say. Now, I should say in the interest of squaring the circle, the Canadian election has actually since been decided, and it will be the Liberal Party again for the 4th term, even though we had Justin Trudeau stepping down, becoming incredibly unpopular. Let's see what Al Jazeera had to say before we wrap up on a couple of thoughts on a story that was the number 1 on Al Jazeera, the Canadian election.
For many Canadians, this election isn't about choosing a national leader. It's about picking a challenger to an American president who poses an existential threat to Canada.
Canadians' view of their long-standing close relationship with the United States has been fundamentally altered by the actions of Donald Trump.
That's a reaction to what Canadians call an assault of American tariffs and U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to absorb Canada as the 51st state.
I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you.
Canadians are answering in force, with a record 7.3 million of them casting ballots in early voting. The electoral landscape has been upended. Pierre Poilievre and his Conservative Party led in polls by 25 points when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of the Liberal Party said in January that he'd step down. Then came the tariffs.
That changed the tone for Canadians. They saw their government standing up for them in the face of these attacks. Nobody here thought these statements around the 51st state were funny. Like, it was not a joke, and it's not a joke to me, and it's certainly not a joke to our members.
New polls show Trudeau's tough-talking successor, Prime Minister Mark Carney, with a narrow lead.
President Trump, his words and actions, he wants to divide us because dividing us would make his job easier. He's trying to break us so that America can own us. And that will never happen.
Poilievre has struggled to distance himself from his party's ideological cousins in Trump's Republican Party.
After the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime, we cannot afford a fourth Liberal term. We need a change with a new Conservative government.
Carney is hoping for an outright majority of the 343 seats in Parliament and a mandate to lead. Poilievre is hoping that a late surge for Conservatives morphs into an upset victory and the first non-Liberal government in 10 years. With polls tightening, Jagmeet Singh is hoping his new Democratic Party can become kingmaker, giving Carney the margin he needs to run the next government while pushing it and the country to the left. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Ottawa.
Really great coverage there from Al Jazeera. Isn't that a great world we live in, where Al Jazeera provide amazing coverage of the Canadian election? And I can tell you too, in case you missed this part of the show, that, well, the election has actually since been decided in Canada. Just waiting for that one to hit, and some people like twitch in their chairs, like, yes, in Canada. And, well, it does look like, I don't know if it's fair to say that Carney won so much as maybe Trump got the Conservatives to lose.
Yeah.
Doesn't it have that ring about it?
How much sway do we believe he actually had in the Canadian election?
Well, as they said, before all the Trump tariffs and the stepping down of Justin Trudeau, it was like a 25-point lead for the Conservatives. I mean, people really were upset with the Liberals, and they have gone through some pretty horrendous economic times. As we've talked about on the show many times too, most elections are a referendum on your pocketbook. Do I feel wealthier or not? It's part of the reason why people are genuinely concerned if this current national-led government could be a one-term government, just because economic times are still so tough. It doesn't feel like things have improved, if not worse. Now, are those things a direct function of things the National Party have done in the last few years? I don't think it's fair to say that they are, but who cares? If you're not earning more money, you don't really want to go through the finer points of attributing blame based on the minutiae of economic policy and world events. You just say, my life is harder since you took over, get out. But this, of course, reversed in Canada, and Poilievre being associated with Donald Trump and the Conservative movement was probably had a degree of benefit to him until, as you heard, until the tariffs and Trump started talking about 51st state. And then suddenly you've got to distance yourself, and people are not confident that Poilievre can manage to maintain that distance.
Right, that he cannot continue to stiff-arm Donald Trump, but
I like that. I like that mental image, just right in the nose. So there you go, the story that was the number one on Al Jazeera, the Canadian election.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
All right, let's check in because Hamish has got back in touch.
God bless.
He has said this: I have to come clean. Just one person and a cat, but it is a really big, in brackets, wide cat. His words, not mine.
That would probably impact your food bill, Hamish, not necessarily the heating bill, unless your cat has learned how to turn on the heat pump. In which case, well played to that cat.
Some cats.
Not even mad about it. Still, I think you'd be in a pretty solid position to, rise to 150? Maybe 100. I think you'd still be less than I'm paying.
Quite a low power bill if there was then another person living, because Hamish currently pays 103.39 cents. Well, that was at least the latest bill. So on average, as we compare prices of power bills across the country, get in touch, by the way. What was yours last month? 8168 keyword REMA.
That's right. The average around the country, around about $250 for a family of 3 to 4. What does 2-4 of a person look like? Unsure for the sake of metrics.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Imagine if you described your family. How many in your family? 3 to 4.
3 to 4.
What?
3.5.
3.5. Let's take a look now at a more tragic story, and this is Virginia Giuffre. Now, she was the number 4 trending story in the country, and her name synonymous with Jeffrey Epstein, and more particularly standing up against the human sex trafficking that he was conducting, and her proximity to Prince Andrew. There is a infamous photo of Giuffre and Prince Andrew together when I believe she was only about 16 or 17 years old, and therefore, by association, of course, people asking some very legitimate questions of what Prince Andrew may or may not have been involved in. He went on to do some interviews too where he completely destroyed his public image, and now he's been forcibly retired from appearances for the royal family. But sadly, Virginia Giuffre in the headlines because she took her own life in the last week. Some people raising questions about this. Now, she'd only recently survived a rather serious car accident, and now only a little while after that, at the age of 41, has taken her own life in such a manner that I guess you could still consider her to be really a casualty of Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, it's certainly a hard story to broach and not easy to talk about either. And is it surprising, is my question?
Yeah, the problem with anyone who's experienced this kind of thing, and I don't have a direct answer to this too, that where stories of sexual assault are involved and news coverage is involved, the identity of the victim tends to become public domain. I can only guess what collateral damage would happen in your life once your name and your face become associated with something like that. Do you take on an alternate identity or something? You change your hair color, move to a different place? I'm not sure. But I can understand how those things could continue to weigh on your mind, on your heart. You're constantly reminded of them. And even from a broader mental health perspective, rumination is often a cause of, really significant mental health issues as well. Maybe that played a part in this. But nevertheless, she was number 4.
Well, that speaks to what you just said, Andrew, in terms of your name becoming public domain. This was the number 4 trending search term here in New Zealand, so far removed. But the understanding, the knowledge of the story previous has brought it back to people's attention, and they've gone searching for more information.
Yeah, absolutely. And so very sad news to discover that this week, Virginia Giuffre, the woman who, one of the women who led the fight against Jeffrey Epstein and spoke out against those who'd been involved in sex trafficking and the high-powered client base, which incidentally we still don't have released for public knowledge, even though apparently it is in the possession of the FBI right now. She found herself number 4 in our search terms over this week for perhaps the most tragic of reasons.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Closing into the top spot, number 3 back in New Zealand. And I mean, again, we've talked about the power of contrasts over this show. Earlier we talked about on stuff.co.nz the difference between the 1 and the 3 story being Kim.com buying a house versus the Wellington Merrill race. Well, the number 3 story, in light of what I just told you, was number 4, Waido fire.
Yeah.
Well, Waido fire.
A big fire, and again, I think we wanted to see pictures.
That's basically what there was. Video footage of this. For those who are not familiar, we're talking about Waido Valley. There was a fire at Abilities Group Recycling Plant on Hill Road, and I can, in fact, right now show you some video footage that was taken from the location. But again, for those who cannot watch the stream, it's really just a slow pan of a burnt-out husk of a former building site. Really, fire engines
Fire engines doing fire engine things.
Yep. Maybe it's the all the 3 and 4-year-olds saying, "Mummy, Daddy, I want to see. I want to see the fire engines."
I can't lie. I'm 31.
Yeah.
I get excited when there's a fire engine going past.
Mate, there is no age limit on being excited about fire engines. Don't you worry about that.
Look at the destruction, though. I think, again, that is what drew the clicks.
Yep. Understandable, but really not a heck of a lot to talk about on this. There was a fire. It was a recycling centre. I think it might have been because of batteries in old devices that were being disposed of. So that was your number 3. Let's go to your number 1.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And something of my humanity, or my faith in humanity, has been restored because the number 1 story, appropriately, thank you very much, was Anzac Day. That was your number 1 trending news story. However, before we do take a look at this clip, in fact, no, let's play the clip first, and then we'll come back and talk about how this might also relate to the number 13 story. Maybe my faith being restored in humanity was misplaced, but first, let's take a look at some of this coverage of the Anzac Day dawn services.
Chaplain will pronounce the benediction. Contingents are about to march off.
So, of course, for those who were just listening along, you're just hearing sights and sounds from the Anzac Day services around New Zealand. Of course, some of them taken from places like Queenstown. Others, of course, in Auckland in front of the War Memorial Museum, and a procession of veterans of all sorts of different conflicts. And that's something I think also worth reminding ourselves too, that these commemorations for Anzac Day, although inspired, of course, by the First World War, still extend to our veterans of more recent conflicts, like, say, even Afghanistan and Iraq, East Timor. And so appropriate at a time like this as well to thank those for their service who have done something that these days, I think, very uncommon to find somebody who would consider giving their life on behalf of their country and on behalf of perhaps a generation that will not even, they may never get a chance to meet them, to be thanked by them.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to speak to a veteran and now vice president of the Anzac Day Committee here in New Zealand, and he said it is not just about honouring those veterans that we connect to Gallipoli. Understandably so, that is the sort of catalyst. But even our first responders, those who willingly put themselves in harm's way for the benefit of others, knowing that at some times there is that call and that need. And so even though we no longer have veterans from the First World War, we still have many who do earn the title of veteran, somebody 100%. Who puts themselves in harm's way for our safety.
That's right. I mean, we've heard the verse many a time, haven't we? Jesus himself saying that no greater love has any man than someone lay down their life for another. And I think, to me, the important distinction is that laying down of your life is not necessarily the moment you draw your last breath, but for these people, it's really the moment they decide to take their first step. I have decided that my life, I will lay down for the protection of others. I will put myself at risk. I will take a step that is increasingly uncommon in perhaps a more selfish age that we live in, and one that seems separated from the virtues that saw this kind of sacrifice for what it was, and recognizing too how precious this nation is that we have, and perhaps even, dare I say, the worldview that we benefit from in our part of the world. So we do want to say again to those who are serving, who have served, thank you for your service. That was your number 1 news story over the last week. And quickly before we go to, contrasted with the number 13, Anzac Day trading hours.
When can I go to the shops?
Is that not the duality of man? Right there. Anzac Day, great sacrifice, but also why are they closed until midday? I've got tins of paint to buy. I don't know, whatever it might be. Look, those are your trending stories for the week. And would you look at that? It's 1 o'clock. Time has flown once again. Thank you so much for making time to spend with us. We're going to continue the stream for a few minutes to discuss more of these stories, so you're welcome to join us for that stream. You can still do so, even though we won't be on the radio. You can listen, you can watch if you head to remo.co.nz. Click through on either YouTube or Facebook links, and we will see you there. Otherwise, of course, we'll see you back. Same bat time, same bat channel for another edition of Trending. I'm Andrew Curtis. He's Josh Beatty. We'll see you next time. And we are now in Streamtown only. What a range of stories once again. Let's take a look. Anzac Day. So, yes, commemorations and so on there. Was there anything I didn't get a chance to talk about here? There was a story from the spin-off we didn't get around to covering.
Yeah, well, we would have needed to give that quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I made an executive decision. We can talk about that one if you like, but it's regarding this number one on the spin-off, why I told my principal I will not teach the new proposed English curriculum. Quite funny to read that and realize it's coming from a teacher. Like if I hear, I've told my principal, I'm thinking of a student.
Yeah.
But no. When you're an adult, you still have principals. Or principals, if you don't have principals. It's a spelling joke. It doesn't come across well in an audio context. So that was that. That kind of happened. Apparently English is racist or something. It's hard not to be dismissive, but I am. Canadian election. I mean, that's been fascinating. People have been deeply unhappy with the Liberal Party for quite a while. And even Justin Trudeau, who could seemingly do no wrong for so long.
Yeah.
Steps aside, new man comes in, Trump does a few things, new parties associated, in Canada at least, the Conservative Party associated with Donald Trump. Was that what took them down?
It seems so, doesn't it?
That's what most analysis I've looked at suggests. Is that being a little bit too gleeful and, again, we like to attribute a singular cause. We're very keen to do that as human beings.
How can we boil it down to one title?
Yep, but, I mean, Trump sure didn't help it. So
no. I have a question for you.
Go.
Were you surprised by the manner of that coverage by the New York Times on Pope Francis?
Actually, yeah.
Quite a bit of praise.
Pleasantly surprised. Well, here's the thing. He's always been more popular in liberal circles than maybe past popes, which is why I raised the issue of whether or not they need to return to a more conservative pope for the next one. For example, Pope Francis saying that it's okay for priests to pray blessings on gay couples, or even saying too about, say, if a gay person is seeking God, who is he to judge? Does that mean now we need to recorrect, for want of a better word, air quotes and such as attributed there? Yeah. But it doesn't surprise me too much that he was so popular. He very much was a pope of the people, as you alluded to. So I can see why people would be feel a closer kinship to him as opposed to, say, Benedict, who was seen as more of a defender of church traditions and certainly a bit more of an academic.
Because what is interesting is it was record low numbers turnout for his funeral or vigil.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Which was then attributed to the reduction of religion across the globe.
Surely it hasn't been that much, though, since Benedict. Like, how long was he pope for? It was about a decade?
I can't tell you, to be honest.
No, Josh, I rely on you. I'm going to have a look now. Pope
a live Google, as it were.
By the way, did you not love the use of the word pontificate?
Oh, mate.
What a great word. What a great word. So that tells me when he passed away. That does not help me. La, 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 la. President of the Argentine Episcopal Conference. What a banger that would be to attend. Ordination. No.
What a banger that would be to attend. Did you also hear, by the way, that the meeting of the cardinals is using the most up-to-date and expensive anti-spy technology to prevent any leaks of who will be named the next pope?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good idea, too. What did you say was the conclave of the cardinals?
Yes.
Surely somebody's made a movie with that title. If nothing else, there's some spectacular words in all this, which I know is probably not the main lesson to take from a news event of this significance. The papacy of Pope Francis, 2013. to 2025. So 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a significant amount of time. I think we've seen a decrease in religion across the globe.
Yeah,
in
but
that
is it
time.
in 12 years, really? Like, to be honest, maybe in the Western world, that might be true. But the more populous parts of the world, I would argue it's probably gone up.
Well, yeah.
Asia, South America, Africa. It's really only in westernized countries like our own.
Right.
Or, say, through Europe.
So perhaps the record low numbers turnout for the funeral is more indicative of religion in Italy?
Could be, actually. But he's... yeah, I don't know. I mean, when they say record low, compared to who? Like...
Again, great question.
Great. See, I'm all about the great questions, Josh. When they say record low, are we saying like it's 40% lower than the previous low, or is it like 2% lower?
I'll do a...
Has it been a downward trend over the last number of years?
I'll do a Google.
Tell you what, you do that. I'm going to try my favorite, which is in fact Grok. Grok is my fave on the old X platform. What are we trying to find out? So what was the name of the farewell thing? Farewell shindig?
I'm guessing his vigil or funeral?
Vigil, there we go. Okay. What is the... What's the attendance for the last 5 papal vigils?
The statement that there was record low numbers at St. Francis's funeral is incorrect. While the funeral was not a largely public event, it was the way the Pope Francis was.
Well, there you go. See, this is why...
We double check?
We double check and we question these things.
I apologize.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that answers that, doesn't it? Live, on the fly, investigative journalism. That is why people watch the show.
Interesting then, why was that reported?
Well, here's the real question. Well, not the real question. Here is something that I think we talked about on the show, but we haven't done it for a while, so I'm going to remind you guys of it. You need to be very careful with the stories that you want to believe are true. Excuse me. So for a lot of people, they want to believe churches are in decline. Right? If you had another one out there that said, record turnout, that honestly could still perform just as well. But it's just that kind of thing where you've got to find a hook, right? What's the hook in the news story? And the pro and anti-religious communities want to get their wins. So that's probably what I'd put it down to.
There you go.
There I go. What do we got here? Pope Benedict. Oh, he passed away as well. That's right. Funeral, 195,000 mourners when he was lying in state. But as you say, lying in state, 250,000 for Pope Francis. So there you go. Make of that what you shall. Anything else from this before we put a bow on it so much for today? The Oblivion remaster. The Power Bill thing was fascinating.
That was. Still a lot of people getting in touch.
Oh, really?
Yep.
What have we got?
In Auckland, 250. Seems about.
Yep. So,
about right.
That is the average.
Yeah.
The average in Auckland was 250.
Yeah. 250. Well, this person, I'm guessing rounded.
Right.
If
okay.
you had your bill.
Right on the money every month.
Smack bang.
Woo. Well played.
Yeah.
That's some level of like autistic attention to detail. You're just like sitting there watching the meter like tick over or something. Do they even check They don't check meters anymore, do they? Like, is that a thing? Do we still have meter readers going around?
We must have something.
You'd think so, but like, I don't know.
Don't ask me.
Don't ask me, mate. Yeah, are there still meter readers? Is that a thing? What a career to have too. We're actually going to talk about
Surely
this.
you'd notice if.
Would you? I mean, I live in an apartment. I'd never know.
Yeah,
I can't remember a lot of times ever seeing the meter reader come around. Even when I was a kid. I know they did every now and then, but I don't remember it every time.
I remember seeing the meter reader as a kid.
Yeah, but how often?
Oh,
like every week, every month? Like how often would they visit you?
Say hi. How's it going?
Starting to perhaps introduce some family intrigue that I'd rather move on from.
Yeah. Once or twice.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Enough said about that. Enough said for us for today. So, parting thoughts, comments, Josh Beatty?
really good show and really appreciating a lot of the engagement. Still quite a few people watching, particularly on Facebook at the moment and also YouTube.
Lovely.
Really appreciate you making this show, by the way, because your comments, your thoughts, interacting with you is the unique aspect of trending that we really love to dive into. So make sure to join us next week.
We shall see you then, dear friends. Be excellent to one another. Have fun. Be good. See you next week.